CM Punk is looking to go back to the WWE, and a lot of wrestling journalists are helping him to do so. Welcome to Spoiler Warning. We're going to discuss what is happening with CM Punk, all of the reporting coming in around him, what the next steps may be, and I've tried to show you a little bit earlier there, we're going to be using the source House of Wrestling today because they have the most news on CM Punk. So I've got quite a few different areas to go through here, quite a few different things to cover, which should tell us a lot about the plans for CM Punk. And I'm going to start historically back with CM Punk leaving AEW all of his own accord at All In. This is from House of Wrestling. When they use the word exclusive, it means that they initially reported it. So there's a lot of reasons that I believe, including people telling me literally so, that WWE is of interest to CM Punk. Even historically, when he was told by wrestling media, that being myself, that only a phone call would be needed to get him back in touch with Triple H, CM Punk then started negotiating with both AEW and WWE. He did sign with AEW. Things have now changed. We all know about what happened at All In. AEW All In was a bit of a disaster for CM Punk and the end of his time with AEW. A large part of this was a number of reasons that weren't necessarily his fault. For example, another exclusive from House of Wrestling, no one from AEW met CM Punk at Heathrow Airport. He had to make his own way to the show. This caused the initial frustration, which led to a lot of issues with one Jack Perry. Now, it's interesting watching how things changed over the course of CM Punk leaving AEW. For example, Jack Perry reportedly expected to take blame for CM Punk altercation. This is House of Wrestling reporting on PWTorch and Wade Keller's reporting. So Wade Keller is the one saying that Jack Perry reportedly was expected to take the blame. That is not how things actually happened. As we know, Jack Perry has been suspended, but it is CM Punk who was fired. Moving on then. AEW did not contract CM Punk directly about their suspension. This is once again a House of Wrestling exclusive. You might suggest they have some sources very close to CM Punk. And they did know that he was not directly contacted about suspension. It does suggest that AEW fired him without actually having too many discussions with him, which I believe is the intention of this here report. At least this might be why this information was shared with House of Wrestling. You have to consider sometimes sources have agendas as well. So wrestling journalists at times do have agendas as to what they report. They will try their best not to. Journalists in general try their best not to. But sometimes wrestling is subjective. A lot of wrestlers and sources and backstage officials will intentionally leak information. House of Wrestling later reported there was a meeting cancelled between CM Punk and the Elite that has been queried and, let's just say, disputed by a number of other sources as well. But this is another example of me saying, and why I'm saying, a narrative is being created by the CM Punk camp, which quite literally says, it's not necessarily his fault, maybe you still want to hire me. Now, when it comes to WWE, there's been a lot of talk recently about whether the WWE are interested in CM Punk. I'm reporting that that is not the case, and to my knowledge, that continues to be the same. Tony Khan, my life was in danger at a wrestling show. This is House of Wrestling confirming and reporting that CM Punk was being fired. But before we continue, I just want to take a look at a typical wrestling media tactic. Look at this picture of Tony Khan. Then look at this picture. Then look at this picture. Then look at this picture. All good pictures, apart from this one. The only bad picture of that bunch is the one of Tony Khan. So I do find that quite interesting. Moving on then. This is where we start to get the narrative changing and shifting towards WWE. House of Wrestling reporting CM Punk was allegedly interested in WWE Royal Rumble return. Fightful Select reports, meaning that this one did not come from House of Wrestling. This narrative came from Fightful, that being Sean Rossap and the Fightful Select paywall, that CM Punk was interested in a Royal Rumble return. This is when we start to see information being leaked about CM Punk wanting to wrestle in WWE again. We then go back to more positive spin on CM Punk. Chris Jericho, WWE alumni, joked with CM Punk backstage at AEW All In. This is a story that after the issues that they had backstage with CM Punk, he was able to have a bit of a laugh and a joke with Chris Jericho. On today's episode of Talk is Jericho, this came directly from first-hand source, Chris Jericho, so pretty reliable on that one. The narrative continues. AEW Collision sees lowest viewership ever following CM Punk release. Now, you could just report, for example, AEW Collision sees lowest viewership ever. That's a headline, but they put it into context and added that it's following CM Punk's release. Because, it's CM Punk that's important here. WrestleNomics reporting on that one. So a number of different sources are all starting to agree as to certain aspects of CM Punk. Very much suggests to me the news that is coming out is extremely favourable. Now we get to the part where there is teasing, except there isn't. This is where wrestling journalists are massively helping by just refusing to stop talking about CM Punk. Finn Balor on WWE match against CM Punk, money talks. That's the headline. Let's look a little deeper here. One of the reasons, by the way, I've chosen House of Wrestling here is this phrase. Finn Balor was asked by Peter Rosenberg on the Cheap Heat podcast. And I've got to respect House of Wrestling for this, for pointing that out. Far too many of these different websites and different outlets forget to mention Finn Balor right here in this headline has not said, I want a match with CM Punk, money talks. He's been asked, do you want a match with CM Punk? And he's said, I'd be interested in wrestling a broomstick if someone's going to pay me money. He doesn't even mention CM Punk. But that naturally will be spun as Finn Balor wants CM Punk in WWE, continuing to create the narrative that CM Punk is wanted in WWE by the wrestlers. You also see stuff like this from Ryback, from Alberto Del Rio, from Goldberg, where they try and create the narrative that WWE wants them back. Continuing on this, Drew McIntyre on CM Punk. He's certainly controversial. In an interview with Sportskeeda, once again, he was asked the question. Drew McIntyre became the latest WWE talent to be asked about their interest in working with Punk. He said, I don't make those decisions. I watch what I say in interviews. He's certainly controversial and he gets people talking. I'll leave it on that. At no point does he say that he's interested in working with CM Punk. Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, he's certainly controversial. The narrative continues to be spun. We go further. It actually has to load now. It's going to the quieter ones. Nick Khan says WWE only has respect for CM Punk. Let's scroll down to get to the meat of it. ESPN's Mark Raimondi had a chance to speak with the CEO of WWE, Nick Khan, following the merger, and asked the executive whether the sports entertainment juggernaut is interested in welcoming Punk back into the fold. So another person, this time higher up in WWE management, being asked the question. Nick Khan said, we only have respect for Phil. We appreciate his run here. We appreciate what he did. Not many people can actually get in there and do what he did as regards to UFC. So when we have respect for Phil, we wish him nothing but the best. That, for me, does not sound like they want him back in the WWE. But certainly when you factor in, Drew McIntyre said he didn't say he wouldn't be interested. Finn Balor said he'd be interested. These things didn't happen. But it helps to create the narrative that CM Punk is wanted by WWE wrestlers and now WWE officials. So if someone, for example CM Punk, is trying to engineer a move back to the WWE, wrestling media is a big help right now. When you look at some of the exclusives that have been coming out, certainly they suggest that CM Punk might be a little easier to work with in future, and it's not really CM Punk's fault. CM Punk is not suing Tony Khan following termination, exclusive to House of Wrestling. So, for example, there is plenty here. On top of that, Fightful reported earlier this year that AEW plans to return to the Windy City. It is really all about that headline, though. CM Punk not suing Tony Khan following termination. This is one of those exclusives where it's very much just from the eyes of House of Wrestling. House of Wrestling has not been able to confirm whether or not Punk has a non-compete clause, etc., etc. So they've not been able to get all of the details. Nice to see, because if they were talking directly to Punk, it does suggest they'd be able to ask that question. So little things like that go a long way to telling you who is talking to who. You may note that I've now selected Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe breaks silence on CM Punk and Jack Perry altercation. But did he? Did he? Joe has become the latest AEW talent to give their thoughts on the incident after Chris Jericho broke his silence on an episode of Talk is Jericho podcast a few weeks ago. Speaking to Joseph Staszewski of the New York Post, he discussed his upcoming AEW Grand Slam Clash of MJF, working with the late Bray Wyatt, his thoughts on CM Punk as an individual, and the All-In incident as a whole. CM Punk was asked the question. For the most part, I haven't read what's being portrayed. Samoa Joe, not historically a fan of wrestling dirt sheets. There's been so much said. I'm not the one to go out there and try and debunk everything. I know we had the initial incident. Everybody rallied. Everybody got together, got their heads together and lined up, and we got ready to do the show. And we went out there and we did the show. That is Samoa Joe's focus. But that's not necessarily Samoa Joe breaking his silence. That's Samoa Joe answering a question that was asked of him. And this continues. Next up, Ricky Starks calls CM Punk a great rival who showed respect. Lots of narrative shifts here in the direction of CM Punk, good guy. Maybe we should be working with him in future. The latest Punk comment came after a fan reacted to a post Starks published claiming to be the face of AEW and the face of Collision. Fan said, "Do you miss Phil?" Starks said, "Yeah, of course, great rival in the ring and treated me with respect." This all leads us to the build to No Mercy. In the build to No Mercy, Shawn Michaels was asked a direct question by House of Wrestling, which means that this is technically an exclusive, and the headline that went everywhere is that Shawn Michaels would love to have CM Punk in WWE NXT. Once again, Shawn Michaels was directly asked the question, do you want CM Punk in NXT? Ensuring that CM Punk headlines continue to navigate and reports like this that I'm making now have to be made. But did he say he'd love to have CM Punk in NXT? I always enjoyed working with Phil. Again, I didn't get to do it much, but I don't know. I'll say this, I understood him. I think there were, whatever you want to say, there were similarities in us. Look, I can't lie. Once again, we were at TV. He once pulled out of his wallet right there on the spot a little autograph. I guess I'd apparently signed for him in a hotel that he still had. So I've always liked him. And I understand he's a different kind of cat and can sometimes be challenging to get along with people. But again, that's probably why I like him, because I suffer from the same thing. So, but still, look, obviously, that's for people to decide higher up on the food chain than I am. He's a guy that does numbers and makes money. I think that would be a risk-reward ratio that I'm sure from a company standpoint they'd have to consider. But when it comes to would we take him in NXT and have him on our television, are you kidding me? Of course I would. I just don't think anybody would let him. Who doesn't take that kind of star power? You know what's missing from that? The headline. The headline is missing from that. There are so many narratives that are being changed and narratives that are being forged to make this clear. And I've been told repeatedly, one, that the WWE aren't interested, and two, CM Punk is interested in a return to the WWE. If we look now at how wrestling journalists are treating this story and this report and all of the CM Punk facts and figures, it certainly does seem that we're creating a very positive narrative around CM Punk, and we certainly seem to be suggesting that WWE wrestlers want him. I just want to be very, very clear that this is a media construct, it is a CM Punk construct, and it might well be successful. If you want CM Punk in WWE, or if you don't want CM Punk in WWE, drop me that in the comments, leave a like, and I'll see you next time.